Emergency Executive Panel. The first item on the agenda is the election of a chair. Could I ask for a nomination, please, from members? Councillor Stannard.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Hampton.
Any other nominations?
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Giles. We move to the vote then, please. In the absence of any other nominations. I assume that that's carried then, members. Thank you very much. I'll pass it over to the chair now, who does appointment of vice chair, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appointment of vice chair. Do we have any nominations? Adam?
Propose Councillor Stannard.
Excellent, and I'm happy to second that, if that's allowed. Any other nominations for vice chair? No, is that carried? And next up is apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Oliver. Councillor Giles is her substitute, and I can see that Councillor Thomas, I imagine that you sent apologies too.
And any declarations of interest? No. Minutes to approve the accuracy of the minutes held, the meeting held on 18th of February 2021, which I wasn't present at. I think there are enough people in the room who were, so is that approved? Yeah. Okay, and on to the first item of the agenda. We've got the City Vision Sustainability Group overview. I think we've got Emma Smith and Anthony Hudson from Hudson Architects. So, got a presentation. I'll hand over to you to explain a bit more about what that's about.
Lovely, thanks, Councillor Hampton. My name is Emma Smith. I'm a strategy officer here at Norwich City Council, and obviously this is Anthony Hudson, founder and creative director at Hudson Architects. We sit on the Norwich City Vision Sustainability Working Group, as does Richard Wilton, our environmental strategy officer. We're also hoping that Ashley Mills from the Tyndall Centre and Paul McCarthy from Chantry Place will also sit on the group and join us today, but unfortunately they've got prior commitments, so send their apologies. But yes, we're going to talk through the Sustainability City Update today. So this slide gives you a bit of an overview as to what we're going to cover. So we'll be providing an update on a number of groups, looking at the role of climate commissions and then what that might look like at a local level here in Norwich. So just to do a bit of a recap really, so the Norwich 2040 City Vision was launched in 2018, and that was informed by a number of pieces of work, which include focus groups that were conducted with residents, officers, members and visitors to the city.
Can I just ask if we get the slides afterwards or whether we should be making...
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just asking if it's possible to get the slides afterwards. Or
of course, yeah, I'll make sure they're circulated in a minute, and any other important links that we cover. Okay. So yes, so in terms of work that informed the City Vision, we conducted focus groups which were led by an independent research company. We held an initial development conference whereby we discussed with delegates what priorities and themes should be included in the vision. We conducted some online consultations. One was attached to the budget consultation, and then one was aimed at young people. We conducted stakeholder interviews with a number of businesses and representative groups across the city. And then finally, we held a conference for young people, which was led by young people to discuss priorities and themes that were important to them. So that resulted in the 5 themes that you can see on the slide there, being a creative city, a fair city, a connected city, and a dynamic city, and a livable city, which obviously we'll be looking at in more detail today. So following the launch of the City Vision, Chris Salverson from the Norfolk Chambers of Commerce was invited by ourselves to set up a Norwich Business Leaders Climate Group. And the initial meetings of those we'll look at in a moment. Following that, we set up a Norwich 2040 City Vision and COVID-19 recovery group. So given the onset of the pandemic last year, we felt we needed to set up a more formal group. And then from that, we set up a sustainability working group. I'll come on to a bit more detail on each of those groups now. So as I said, the Chambers of Commerce lead on the Norwich Business Leaders Climate Group, and to date there's been 2 meetings that have been held, but then there has been a bit of a hiatus due to COVID and limited resources at the Chambers to pursue that area of work. However, those meetings were well attended with representatives from around 30 businesses from a variety of sectors, including local authorities, housing, transport, energy, telecommunications, retail, finance, architecture, education and manufacturing. But they are looking to reconvene the group in the autumn, and there's a sort of a focus that they're taking forward in terms of clear and achievable objectives with relevance to the main task of helping businesses on their journey towards net zero. They're looking to enable businesses to access the support that they will need and the resources required to get them ahead with the tasks required, to broadcast and engage to those hard to reach businesses, to build the digital knowledge base, which will be free to access with how to advise, and to seek out and to promote those fit for process schemes. So there's a lot of information out in the marketplace at the moment, so they're looking to kind of vet that and then promote that to businesses. And then also how best to apply the Chamber's resource and the resources of others in the group. And Chris Arguston will be providing a further update on the group at the next City Vision meeting, which will take place on Monday the 6th of September, so we'll have more information after that meeting. So moving on to the City Vision and the COVID-19 recovery group, this meets every other month, was set up, as I say, in response to the pandemic, and is represented by a number of key partnerships and groups from across the city, which are set out on the slide there, including the Good Economy Commission, the Norwich Opportunity Area, the LEF, Norfolk Equality and Human Rights Group, Transport for Norwich, etc., etc. So the City Council chairs the group, and the aims of the group is to work together to achieve the long-term ambitions for the City Vision. So this is looking at understanding the impacts of COVID, identifying long-term trends, monitoring progress and taking action, supporting other partnerships in the delivery of the vision, acting as a champion for an extra voice for the city, and then putting our vision front and centre of strategic planning and communication. And the representatives of the group have strong links to the wider city vision, which is made up of other businesses, whether that be international, national, SMEs, local independents, statutory agencies, schools, the VCSE sector, community groups and communities of interest. In terms of the sustainability working group, this came out of some workshops that were conducted by the City Vision Group and a strong ambition for us to further focus efforts around the sustainability agenda. So we have a number of volunteers who are from Hudson Architects, Anthony here, the Norwich Bid, Chancery Place, Aviva, Wensum Junior School, New Anglia LEP, the UEA, the Tyndall Centre, First Buses and ourselves, Norwich City Council, who sit on that group. And we have strong links with also the Norwich Business Leaders Climate Group. It is an informal group and its main objective is to achieve short to medium term sustainability ambitions for the city as set out under the themes of the City Vision and in particular the Livable City theme. And you can see that there's a number of aims that the group aspire to, and I think it's important to point out that one of the key things is they want to complement the work of existing groups and partnerships and not duplicate. So, for example, the Good Economy Commission, the Norfolk Climate Change Partnership, we've got the River Wensum Partnership Strategy Group, Transport for Norwich, and the LEP, etc. So there's a number of projects that the group are leading on or overseeing at the moment. One is looking at opportunities for urban greening in the city. So this is a research project being led by a UEA intern, and that's being conducted over the summer, and we're due to get a report very soon from the intern. We're conducting a mapping exercise of all the sustainability activities that are taking place across the city, because we're very aware that there's a lot happening at a strategic level right down to grassroots level, and we need to kind of have that sort of whole picture. And that's a desktop exercise at the moment, engaging with partners as well to collate that information, being led by ourselves here at Norwich City Council. There's also the Upcycle Your Waste project, which is a city-based project on how to reduce, reuse and recycle waste, which is being led by the Norwich Bid, which you may well be aware of. There was an event that took place at the end of July in Chapelfield around Sink the City. So with, sort of looking for innovative ideas and upstarts to utilise kind of waste across the city. And then another focus is around exploring the options of setting up a Norwich Climate Commission here in the city, and we'll focus a bit more on that shortly. So the group has a lot of ambition and passion and commitment, but as with many of these things, there's no funding, so it's all done on people's goodwill. But the group are keen to explore what delivery frameworks are already in existence, such that we're not sort of recreating the wheel. And Ashley Mills from the Tyndall Centre suggested that the group consider place-based climate action network, PCAN. I'll refer it to, it's a bit of a mouthful. And the Tyndall Centre are well connected to them as a network. PCAN itself is a framework for translating climate policy into action on the ground in our communities. And it's about engagement, impact, and the co-creation and sharing of knowledge. The network itself comprises of place-based climate commissions and thematic platforms with a real focus on stakeholder groups, which are particularly important for place-based climate action, and they are co-created with representatives from the respective communities. And the PCAN is a network that's funded by the Economic and Social Research Council with the aim to support local authorities and cities to meet the requirements set out in the Paris Agreement 2015 and the UK Climate Change Act. So the working group has considered this framework and how best to move forward, and have sought support from the wider vision group to explore the option of setting up a Norwich Climate Commission that affiliates itself to PCAN and learns from its framework. So moving on to sort of the role of a climate commission, I think in summary, climate commissions are sort of a city or area-wide partnership which bring together people and organisations from the public, private and civic sectors who work collaboratively to help drive, guide, support and track climate change action. They are independent bodies and they should complement the activities of the local authority and the local enterprise partnership. And here we can see sort of a comprehensive table which has come from PCAN, which suggests what the role of the Climate Commission should be. So just sort of picking on a few there, you know, the focus is very much around sort of connecting and mobilising local actors, building a sense of common ownership and shared responsibility. It's about being a positive voice and emphasising how climate action can be an opportunity to deliver on other social, economic and environmental objectives. It's about informing, guiding, supporting and tracking progress, providing neutral spaces for the review of different issues, as well as then looking at the sort of promotion of inclusive processes that involve and empower local actors, serving as an independent and trusted voice in the local area, strengthening the evidence base and the Commission, reviewing current activities and celebrating successes, which I think is really key, and also to provide an ongoing longer-term support for climate action that spans electoral cycles and variations in public awareness and business support. So I think equally important as looking at the role of the Climate Commission, I think it's important to look at what climate commissions don't do, and I think this helps underpin their independence, integrity and neutrality. And as it says here on the side, climate commissions are not a place for marketing or lobbying. They're not an attempt to take over council responsibilities. They're not an extension of local authority powers. They're not a substitute for direct public representation. They're not a body that directly designs or delivers programmes or projects. They're not policymakers, but I think they do have a key role in guiding and advising and making recommendations to policymakers. And they're not talking shops, so they are there to make a tangible difference in the delivery of climate action. So there's a number of existing climate commissions out there. The first one was formed in Leeds in 2017, and that came about with the University of Leeds working with Leeds City Council. And the Leeds model inspired further climate commissions to be established, and they've then formed the PCAN, which began in January 2019. And central to PCAN now, we've got other new climate commissions that came on board early last year in Belfast and then followed shortly by Edinburgh. And the PCAN aims to produce a replicable model for other places to establish their own climate commissions, and more are now coming on board. So again, I think there's a lot of learning that we can take, and a lot of best practice that we can draw on at a local level. In terms of the most recent additions to the PCAN, there's Doncaster Climate and Biodiversity Commission, Surrey Climate Commission, Croydon Climate Crisis Commission, Lincoln Climate Commission and Kirklees Climate Commission, with more planned, as I say, for later this year. And I think we're all aware that, with climate emergency declarations that have been made around the UK, these have increased sort of in salience as a way of bringing communities together to tackle even more challenging carbon neutral targets. But obviously the momentum has been kind of halted somewhat as a result of the pandemic, obviously, and also combined with, ever continuing strains on local authority budgets. I think the need for place-based climate commissions has never been greater. So that's a bit of a broad overview. So I'm now going to hand over to Anthony, who's going to talk you through what we're sort of thinking about at a local level.
Thank you, Emma. I think it is important because, this is a long word, place-based climate action group, but there are two things that are important. It's place-based, so it's focused on where we are, i.e. Norwich, and it's a climate action group. So it's trying to deal with all the issues of climate scenario we've got in front of us. And I think it's from all the group that have come together, we think it's a really, really important step in the city's ambition to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And this is the aim. We want to bring together a good balance of public, private, and third sector. So as Emma's mentioned, I'm just giving you a broad outline of other climate commissions, but it's about grassroots groups to high-level kind of businesses and the public sector, so it's and SMEs as well. So it's once again a really, really good broad brush of engagement of all people within the city. It'll be independent, as again Emma's already kind of emphasised, but aligned to Norwich City Council. And we'll report. We will have a report back to City Vision in the COVID-19 recovery group, and they will review our performance. It's really what we want to be is a hub for all the numerous organisations and people who are really interested and kind of passionate about trying to sort climate action out. And we want to, as Emma's already said, there's lots and lots of groups who are doing lots and lots of various activities, but there's the usual problem of people not knowing what other groups are doing and duplication. So we want to avoid that duplication. We want to get something which is sort of a hub whereby everybody knows roughly what other people are doing, and we're not wasting time trying to do exactly the same thing. We want to promote leadership. We want to shout out our success stories, all the things that we're doing brilliantly, and also be very, very clear about what we aren't doing brilliantly as well. We want the Commission will be a critical friend to all those, including the City Council, and a safe space to discuss difficult issues. I mean, there are going to be difficult issues. There are going to be big things where businesses are clearly going to find it very, very difficult to meet the 2050 requirements. But we want this to be a collaborative and joint effort to do this. We want very, very clear communications and positive messages to go out, and that's the ambition of the group. We've secured the help and support of Andy Goulston, who Emma's already said who set up the first place-based climate action group in Leeds, and he's been very, very enthusiastic. And they are, the group are very keen to have us, because obviously Tyndale Centre is really fundamental. I mean, it's one of the kind of top people who know, experts in climate change. So we can't come back. I mean, if we set this up, we've got an amazing background, amazing job. And everybody, Asher Minns, who's leading the Tyndale Centre, is actually being feted by numerous PCANs to help them. So we're very in a very good place. He, as I said, he's co-chair of that group, and he's advised us that we advise us on the next steps, which is the next slide. So the next steps are to seek support. We've presented various ideas to City Vision and COVID-19 Recovery Group, and we're going to go back to them with the things that them has been talking about, and what I'm talking about, and the next steps we're talking about here on the 6th of September, to get their approval to take this forward. So we will need to set up the Climate Commission. We will need to establish a working group to decide how we kind of advertise and put out requests from people who are interested. So we need a sustainable working group, which will be formed partly by the group that's already in existence and others such as the Broads Authority. We would like to appoint 2 interim co-chairs, and invites will go to the Tyndale Centre. I think obviously the obvious person will be Asher Minns there, and Norwich City Council, and Emma will advise on who from Norwich City Council will be the appropriate person to join us, and maybe it's a discussion we'll be having here, I don't know, as an interim chair. And that panel, that working panel, will draft terms of reference, purpose of commission, the role of commissioners, period of existence, most of them are running for now for 3 years, the rotation of chairs, the kind of governance structure we're going to have, and looking for flexibility for further rounds of recruitment and broadening the geographic area of Greater Norwich. So there's another discussion we've got to have, is talk about the geography and the distance to work and all aspects of that. So that's going to be a kind of interesting conversation that we need to have. We will agree the application recruitment process, appointment of commissioners, and we want to light touch selection panel with simple selection criteria, and we want quality, not quantity. So we want, there are lots and lots of really great people, and we just want to make sure that we we've got to get the message across that this is happening, and get people who are who are interested and passionate about this on board. And then we will also need to secure resource to support ongoing activities of the Climate Commission. And again, I think we're going to have to rely, obviously, on Emma's help to ask the Norwich City Council how we secure that resource. We will also be going for some bidding for funds from the PCAN, and we've got a bidding procedure, I think, in September to go for some funding to help set up the commission as well. And that's a kind of rolling fund that the PCAN group actually got. So then we'll initiate the recruitment process. And the applications will be assessed for commission members, and they will be appointed. And then we will agree hopefully then from those commissioners will agree the 2 chairs, one from generally PCANs have one from the public sector or from the local authority, and one from ideally one from the university. And again, as we said, that will be hopefully the Tyndale Centre. We hope that will go forward, because I think that gives us a good, very strong basis. Agree final terms of reference, initial actions and scope of work, and agree communication to how we kind of launch and agree the communications plan. And the kind of big picture is to try and get this in place before COP26. But we will, but the actual timescales are things that Emma's going to take us through now. But it's we hope we'll get this approved on the 6th and taken forward, and really looking forward to the whole purpose of this is advocacy. Lots of people don't know where to go to get information on climate change, from kind of their own houses to bigger issues of industry and business. And we all work in conjunction with Chamber of Commerce, with Chris. And I know Chris very, very well. He sort of managed my practice for a short while before he took this job at the Chamber of Commerce. So we want a kind of very, very a good hub to be able to get people informed of what we can do.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. So yeah, we've got tight timescales that we've mapped out if we're looking to do a launch to coincide with COP26. But yeah, very basic steps as Anthony has outlined. So next week, present to City Vision Group. We've then got a follow-up meeting with the Sustainability Group to look at some of the details around the advisory board and the terms of reference, recruitment process, etc. And then we'll be looking to advertise for commissioners. We're proposing to do that between 20th of September and 10th of October. And then we'll allow another sort of 11 days following that to assess applications. And then the following week, we'll appoint commissioners. So then that should take us up nicely to the 1st of November, so we can report back to the City Vision and COVID-19 recovery group with a view to then launching and holding the first meeting commencing the 8th of November. So final slide, how can you help? So really important. Communicate and engage with residents on what is happening across the city. There's an awful lot to shout about. I know a lot of you are involved in lots of things that are happening. Working with residents to develop greater knowledge and better understanding about carbon emissions, the effects of global warming and how we must adapt to change, and those that we need to do that sort of now with residents. And again, I think James is here from our communications team, so we're looking to develop a bit of a media pack around COP26. So I think that's something we can perhaps share with members to help spread the word around what's going on and some of our successes as well. Help to complete the mapping of the local sustainability activities, groups and strategies. So it'd be really great if you could tell us what you know is happening in your wards, etc. So the email address there, norwich2040@norwich.gov.uk. Feel free to forward any information, contacts, whatever, or directly to myself. And then sort of finally help promote the opportunity to become a commissioner when we get to that point that we're looking to advertise, because we do really want a good cross-section of people from a variety of sectors. And I think we need to acknowledge that we need sort of activists and skeptics as well, so we get that sort of real challenge and debate happening in the commission. And I think that's everything that I was going to say. I don't know if there's anything that Helen or Richard want to add at all before we open the floor to questions. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Emma and Anthony, both for the presentation and coming to speak to us today, and all the wider work that you've been doing on this. That was really helpful and informative. Open up to questions. Mike, I saw your hand first.
An awful lot of information to take in a relatively short space of time, but very well clearly presented, so thank you for that. And clearly this work is commendable and based on what seems like best practice, emerging best practice around the country, and clearly recognising that the actions we need to take need to be completely joined up across all the key players, and there needs to be buy-in, and also there needs to be professional expertise involved, and having Ashley Minns involved, and potentially being the chair or one of the chairs, co-chair, is absolutely brilliant. And also having the chap whose name I wrote down from Leeds, Andy Goulson, he sounds like, and he's clearly got experience of doing this on the ground, which we can benefit from. It's a huge task. The other thing I like is that this is complementary to all the other strands which are going on, which it has to be. So I think the basic premises seem to me to be about right, based on half an hour briefing. I mean, there are lots of things I could ask. One of the things I wasn't sure about was the role of the commissioner and who they are and where they fit in and what sorts of people. They seem to be quite key, but I don't know, picked up from the presentation actually what the intention is. So there's a question around that, and also, Jake, I was going to ask it anyway, then I noticed in the final slide, activists and skeptics. I'm just interested in the use of the word skeptics, and I think it's good to have people who are challenging, perhaps, of groupthink and bring alternative ideas. I hope we're not, when we say skeptics, we're not talking about climate change deniers, and that which would be, I would think, extremely unhelpful, to say the least. But I mean, that's my question. So generally, I like what I've heard. Devil will be in the detail, and this is only a high-level overview, but not sure about the commissioners and the skeptics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Stoner. So in terms of who the commissioners will be, we will be sort of taking a bit more of a steer from the advisory group, but from discussions we've had so far, I think there's a real want to have as much of a cross-section as possible. So that includes making sure we've got young people involved, as well as more kind of high-level strategists, grassroots organisations. So I think, a lot of breadth we're looking for, but as I say, so I think the key to getting that is our communications plan when we look to go out to recruit. But a lot of the detail is yet to be determined, and so that will be done at the next sustainability working group meeting and then the advisory board.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there a sort of a job description or sort of a vague role description for exactly what they're going to be doing, what their role in the process is going to be? They seem to be quite key.
Yes, so again, that will be down to the sustainability working group to kind of bottom out. So we have drafted some terms of reference which takes account of all of that, which the group will be looking at next week, and then we can sort of share that going forward. And then that will form part of the application pack that goes out, that we then advertise to commissioners.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the PCAN website, you will see the other climate commissions have been set up, and there are quite a lot of them much further advanced than others. Edinburgh has done, has done an audit right across its board. But in terms of the commissioners, there's a list of 12 or 10 commissioners for each of those commission groups, and you can get a sense of what kind of people are involved. And it is a mixture of the public sector, officers, politicians, and then grassroots groups, education groups, faith, and also small business groups as well. So it's a good, and they've got a good wide selection. And ultimately, it depends on those people who offer their time, because it is obviously unpaid and it's voluntary. So you can get a good sense if you look at those.
So they're kind of ambassadors. Are they sort of key people in the community who promote the work that's being done and provide feedback? Is that their role? So they don't have power, or they're not making decisions?
No. So they are an advisory role. It's an advisory role, ambassadorial, as you say. I'm just going to unplug my laptop. I've got some draft terms of reference, so I can have a quick scan of those if you'd like to quickly open those.
That's fine. I think I'm getting a sense of it now. It just wasn't clear. That's all.
Yes, they don't. I mean, they don't have, in the sense, power. They don't. I mean, it is advisory board, and it is as I said, a safe place to bring up issues. Obviously, people can. What we don't want to happen. We want some really good things coming out of it, and we do want people. We hope the idea is that the council, city council, and anyone on the wider board will take notice of what the commission is talking about. Obviously, they don't have to, but it is a collaborative, and its aim is to see if we can get to zero carbon in 2050. So that's its purpose. So it's a sort of advocacy group. It's a group that will want to push ideas, show what good things are being done. Also, kind of show how showcase what things you can do on your individual lives and also in your business community, in education, and so forth.
Shall I just pick up your second point, Councillor? Yeah, so I think, not want to quote unquote, but that was certainly something I think I picked up at one of the last PCAN meetings. So we were just sort of taking a bit of a steer from there, but like you say, not climate change deniers, but no, people that are open to sort of healthy challenge and yeah, wrong choice of word. Apologies.
I've got Judith and then Jamie, and just to say, and Denise, I'll go around everyone, make sure everyone has one chance to ask a question or contribution. If you've got time, we'll try and go back around or open it up, but you might not have time. We've got another item on the agenda, so you might just want to prioritise what you're asking a little bit, just in case it comes to that. But yes, Judith.
Well, thank you, Emma and Anthony, for the information you've given to us today. There's a lot to take in. Really following up from Mike's question about the role of the Commissioner, and can you give us some idea of the size of the Commission? I mean, Anthony mentioned 10. I mean, is that 10 groups, 10 people? And if you're asking for us to go out and sort of promote and publicise what the Commission will be doing and encourage people to get involved, it's very difficult if we haven't got a handle on just the type of people. You say all types of people, but will they be one of 10 or one of 20, or will they be part of a group that feeds into the Commission? And it's just a bit difficult to get a handle on the sort of people that will be sitting on the Commission.
Sure. So looking at what other commissions do, it really varies depending on the geographic area that they're serving. So some commissions have in excess of 30 commissioners, some have, around sort of 12 to 15. So I think realistically, if we can get sort of 12 to 15 quality commissioners to begin with, that would be great. But again, sort of the detail around that is to be decided by the advisory board. But obviously what we will do is we will furnish you with an information pack around all of this before you go out and start talking to people about it.
That's the second point of my question. How would you be kept informed of the progress? Because a lot of what you've said today is news to me. Others may already know a lot about it, but it's new to me, and I don't want to sort of lose contact of what's going on really.
Sure. Well, I think obviously what we've been doing previously is obviously we update cabinet via the City Vision group, and I think perhaps we can sort of come back and update this group. I think the next meeting is in October. But then obviously we will be sort of communicating with you virtually. Perhaps we could use e-councillor and put an information pack on there. Happy to take suggestions from yourselves really, certainly around sort of, getting the setup of the Commission. And then I think the Commission will take a steer from the City Vision group on sort of how the communications are taken forward once the Commission is set up. And I think you mentioned something about subgroups as well. So I think if we are overrun with applicants, I think what we'll perhaps look to do or suggest is that we have specialist areas or themed subgroups that then can come together on an ad hoc basis depending on what the priorities are identified by the commissioners to begin with. So I think, it's just sort of a working practice at the moment.
Can I just add that so the areas that we'd like, we'd like the commissioners to cover would be on transport and travel, energy suppliers, buildings operations, work and business practices, household practices, day-to-day life, education. Obviously, we would want the LEP to be involved if we could, kind of people are interested in the economic and social aspects of climate change as well. So that's the broad brush of representatives we would like to have on that commission.
Thank you both. I've got Jamie next.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, this is, I don't want to be sort of dramatic about this, but it's actually, I find it's really emotional because this is something we've needed for a long time, and I'm really pleased this is actually happening. So thank you that this is actually happening now, and that it does seem to be moving on apace. I've got sort of 3 questions on that. There's the first is about the sort of Emma, you mentioned that it would not be, it's not informed policy making. So my question, I guess, is sort of potentially, I don't know if the cabinet members can answer this, but how the city council will adopt the recommendations from the commission, and how that's going to work. The second question is about, again, you mentioned that it was not really a forum for lobbying, and I want to know whether this will provide a means for lobbying government as well, because a lot of what the council needs to do and what we need to do at an area-wide level is not going to be possible without additional government powers or government funding. I might suggest that it's also working with other organisations beyond PCAN that can support the network, for example, UK 100, which is doing a lot of work on lobbying for green finance, for example, and on retrofit policy. And my third, actually, sorry, 2 other questions. Third question is about sort of democratic involvement of this. Because again, you sort of mentioned that we should be, the councils could be allowed to communicate to residents. We know from studies of climate communication that the best way of communicating is actually through peer level communication, if you communicate with their peers. And so it's really important that we have democratic involvement and participatory involvement. I know that other councils have combined their climate commissions with a climate assembly or kind of climate juries, I think, as an example. Lancaster is another example. And a fourth question, just off the back of what Anthony just mentioned about the areas of work. I'm hoping that retrofits will be included in that areas of work. And you mentioned, I think, buildings and energy supply, but I think that retrofit is really quite a specific and really important area, because about a third of Norwich's emissions are from residential properties, about 40% from buildings overall, including commercial and industrial use. And that's an area where we really need to build skills as well. And so that's an area also perhaps looking to Helen about how this is going to be integrated into council's other strategies, including the economic strategy, the biodiversity strategy, but really everything needs to centre around this. This is so important. Yeah.
I mean, it is. I just want. I mean, it's a. There will be an evidence.
Sorry.
The commission will hopefully be able to signpost evidence of the best practice, what gives the best outcomes, what gives the best results, and that's why we want this broad brush of experts and people who kind of a mixture of experts and people who kind of want to implement the policies. So that's absolutely crucial. It's like any advisory board. If people won't listen to it, then it's going to fall flat. And so we do need the kind of support and uptake from our politicians and officers in Metness. So that's absolutely crucial, because otherwise it will just become a talking shop. Thank you.
Just to pick up on your point around the lobbying, I think, as you've highlighted, I think, that's one of the benefits of being sort of affiliated to the PCAN network, and I think we're also well linked in with UK 100 as well. So I think we see more that their role really. I think that the key thing about Norwich Climate Commission is very much about local action, but I guess, as Anthony said, it's sort of feeding in, signposting and linking up with other organisations where appropriate. So I see lobbying being one of those areas. In terms of sort of the City Council adopting recommendations, I think the expectation at the moment is that sort of all recommendations and reporting will be fed back through the City Vision and COVID-19 Recovery Group, and then that will sort of link back into the council. And I think, sort of an annual report will be presented to the council, and then the council will have the opportunity to formally respond to that, and then obviously our sort of cabinet and senior management team can consider those recommendations and take them forward as appropriate. In terms of sort of democratic involvement, looking at other climate commissions, you know, there is a very key and important place for councillors on the commission. So I think having those direct links is really important. Again, as Anthony has said, and I think, yeah, certainly retrofitting will certainly feature on the agenda. And hopefully that will sort of come about in some of the interest generated by some of the commissioners. Certainly housing features strongly in terms of representation on the wider city vision group. So yeah, do you want to say anything else on retrofitting, Anthony? Or?
No, it's very close to my heart. Retrofitting and, you know, improving performance of existing buildings.
Shall I just add something on the kind of wider point you made around feeding into strategies and following on to Emma's point about how it will be adopted by the council? Obviously, you know, this is all happening kind of within the service that I run, and so we will be clearly closely linked into it, and we'll be pulling the information coming out of the links out of this work into the work that we're doing, you know, internally, into the strategies that we're developing. As you know, we're pulling together a sort of piece of work over the next few months to do a real kind of audit, I guess, across the organisation about where we are, where our gaps are, where our challenges are, where we might have some weaknesses in our response to the climate emergency, and to enable us then to sort of plan a roadmap through that. We obviously won't be able to necessarily commit to the resource to deliver against all of those things at the moment, because resource is a key issue, but we want to make sure that we've got a really clear map of where we are, where we need to be, and kind of the road to get there, and then we can have a plan to how to access funding to support that. So this work will feed into all of that as well, and that will hopefully give us a broader picture and a clear direction of travel over the next few years as to where we need to get to. So it will all plug in through the various registers and networks that we have.
If it's brief, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's really a place for using the recommendations from this to actually revise some of the council's strategies, for example, the economic strategy, not just looking at what the council needs to do, but also what they need to stop doing or not stop supporting. And again, that's something that other councils looking at. Rebecca Willis is a very good person to look at in terms of research and what it will be good to add a skill on. Council saying, oh yeah, we're doing all this stuff, you need to stop the stuff that's actually increasing emissions.
Thank you. I've got Denise next, then I'll come to Adam if you've got anything, and then we'll see if we've got any time to go around again.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Thank you, Emma and Anthony. It's very good to hear this work is going on because it's so important. So I wanted to, my first question to ask is whether the Commission will take a lead from the IPCC report that was published recently, which really paints a dire picture and says we've got less than a decade to radically cut our emissions. And obviously it gives a far stronger lead than say a 2050 target, net zero by 2050, which is really too late. If we don't act in the next really a handful of years, then it's too late. So I wanted to ask that. My second question is, good to hear about the advocacy and challenge, and also to hear that you'll be looking at transport and travel, which is one of the most difficult areas to deal with in policy terms. And to ask whether you'll simply be looking at emissions within Norwich or within Greater Norwich or within Norfolk, because within Norfolk, the transport carbon footprint is simply shocking and it's going up. In the next 5 years, a further 3 A47 dualling schemes are going to be opened, and then and a further 4 local transport, local road schemes are going to be built. That is the plan of the County Council and Highways England. So emissions will carry on going up, and Norfolk sees itself as a car county. And I wondered if you're going to really challenge those really difficult policy issues, if you're willing to have those sort of conversations amongst business who are one of the drivers of the transport carbon footprint. And then also to ask whether you'll be mediating on public information. And I read the EDP, for example, Eastern Evening News, and some of the letters are so ill-informed, I hate to say, that I was thinking of approaching the Evening News and EDP and asking whether they would have a facts and myths page, maybe with Asher Mims sort of hosting that. Because I think unless we challenge some of the preconceptions of people, we're not really going to be able to achieve deep change. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carlo. So first question in regard to taking a lead from the IPCC report, I would expect that would be a very key piece of information that informs the work and the priorities of the Commission once it's set up. Obviously, we will do our best to furnish them with the appropriate information at the point that they form. I think the fact that we've got Asher Mims likely to be one of the chairs, I think is a real advantage. So I don't think any of those key pieces of information will be lost. And then in terms of sort of the query around emissions and transport and Norwich, Greater Norwich and Norfolk, I think certainly the existing sustainability working group recognises that there are barriers at the moment in terms of kind of political administrations and geographic barriers with regards to specifically transport emissions. I think those are conversations and challenges and debates that the Commission needs to have, so I can't really answer that at the moment. I think the focus initially will be Norwich, get the Commission up and running, but as we said, we want to build in flexibility into the terms of reference to ensure that we can broaden that group out as and when appropriate, and we will obviously be looking to make those connections and partnerships, linking the Commission to the relevant authorities and decision makers around that, because the Commissioners will recognise that it's a big issue. And it is a challenge, as you say, with the business community as well, getting the balance right. And then in terms of mediating on public information, I think that's again something that the existing group is really aware of, that there's a need to do more communication, more publicity, more promotion and more education, and try and kind of do some of that myth busting. So that's perhaps something that we can work together on. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak probably a little bit more freely because I'm an independent business. I mean, I think it's personally, and this is a personal view, I think it has to go beyond Norwich and travel to work. I mean, I live outside Norwich as well. So I think it's scope, and it'll become very clear from the evidence, and you look at the evidence of other place-based climate action groups, where they say the big wins come from transport and energy, and that's really, really crucial, and then and buildings. I mean, those are the three major emitters which we have to, if we're going to do this, and we've got to have that ambition to do it. But we can't sort of forward look and see. I mean, it's going to come from the Commission, that group of people, and they're advocating, and their power of persuasion to the councils and public and to politicians about whether we can provide that evidence and show that you should not be doing this and you should be doing that, and that's what I would hope the Commission, one of the roles of the Commission is going to be. So I think there'll be a lot of people who want to be as ambitious as possible. And I would imagine this will, sometimes people say this is just going too far, but it's really up to, I mean, the group is independent, and if they get slapped down because it's trying to push things too fast and going to hurt kind of some parts of the economy, then that probably will happen, and it'll have to be a discussion which will be taken forward, but that is to be looked at in the future.
I think one more thing to add is I think Asher Mims would be more than happy to do a bit of myth busting on the previous point. So I'll feedback.
Just a brief follow-up, building on your points, Anthony, I think that's one of the great things about this proposal is that it is designed to be independent, and so it enables us to go beyond some of the barriers that get in the way of that wider, those wider conversations and that wider persuasion that we need to make. And so that's one of the reasons why, you know, this is I think a good proposal, and it allows us to break out some of those barriers and hopefully win the argument on the basis of the evidence. And that's the aim.
Not to put you on the spot, but Adam, just to complete set, is there anything you want to contribute?
Yes, thank you. So firstly, building on what Councillor Carlo was just saying, what buy-in or engagement have we had, if anything, from Norfolk County Council and or the LEP on this? And 3 governance related questions, and apologies if they've already been covered and I've missed them. Who determines who is a commissioner? Who evaluates the effectiveness and value of the commission? And thirdly, has the draft Commissioner's Code of Conduct been put together yet to ensure that commissioners don't abuse the commission to promote other interests they may hold? But I do think it's really critical we bring the key stakeholders together to achieve these aims. So I do welcome the proposal. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. So in terms of who determines who the commissioners are, we are looking to set up an advisory board. So that will be something that will be discussed at the next sustainability working group meeting on the 8th of September. And so it's likely to be some members of that existing group may be looking to sort of fill in any gaps. I think we mentioned, you know, inviting the board's authority and what have you. So there'll be an advisory group. And they will sort of look to draw up the application process and the assessment criteria. So that rolls within that group. In terms of evaluating the value of the commission, I think the expectations, again, this is down to the commissioners to agree when they are appointed. But I think we'd be looking for some form of preparation and publication of an annual report which will monitor activities, evaluate progress and advise on future priorities and opportunities. So I think there'll be some key, indicators that they'll look to set at the beginning of the commission such that they can monitor their progress. And then that report will be publicly available, but then also submitted to leaders and relevant portfolio holders and committees at the council, who then can consider the annual report and issue a formal response. And then in terms of the code of conduct, that will form part and parcel of the terms of reference. So I think the terms of reference at the moment, as they stand, do cover a code of conduct. And again, we've looked at existing terms of reference for other climate commissions and pulled out some really, really helpful information from there.
Also, I think in terms of engagement or buy-in from Norfolk County Council and the LEP, I'm aware, I think Asher's ordinance is already presented to Norfolk County Council, not on the PCAN, but actually on process on how to reduce emissions. And I think this gives us another opportunity to go back to them and say this is what we're setting out. On the LEP, I'm unclear, Emma.
So the LEP are involved in the sustainability working group, so and I would imagine that they will form part of the advisory group as well. So we've got links with them. We're supporting them in a number of initiatives, and we're linked in with them as well through our economic development teams as well.
Okay, we've been going for an hour on this topic, so unless anyone indicates that they've got some really burning questions specifically about this, I suggest we move on. Is any outstanding? Jamie, is it a fairly quick one?
Yeah, just a question. How will the commission sort of persuade others, I guess, is the question. And what we really need is a body that's actually going to go out and reach out to organisations and bring them on board. Is there a strategy already for data set and that's going to be developed when the commission meets.
I mean, that will be the person, one of the reasons for setting up a commission to develop that strategy and decide exactly where the best big wins can be made and where the advocacy can be made, and where best, and also bring all that evidence together to show undoubtedly that you should be doing this rather than that. Well, that's the advice that the commission would be giving, saying that the evidence is there. Why don't you follow that evidence? And then hopefully that will be picked up.
Okay, in which case, Emma and Anthony, is there anything to sum up or close you want to add?
Just to say thank you so much for listening, and really great questions. It's been really good to have the opportunity to discuss this with you, and that we will feed back through relevant channels following the next two meetings next week, so City Vision Recovery Group and the Sustainability Working Group. I'll submit the slides via Jackie to be circulated at the minute, and some links to PCAN and existing commissions for you to have a look at.
In which case, thank you both very much again for your time, for a very interesting presentation. It seems like there was kind of consensus that this is a good thing that will be interesting to follow. And as per the slides, there'll be opportunity for us to engage in that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, last item, I think we've got update on the Community Renewable Fund bids, which Richard.
Okay, members of SEEK, this is an update in regards to the Council's Community Renewal Fund bids. As you're probably aware, the Council is continually horizon scanning for various opportunities that can develop our sustainability agenda. And hopefully I can maybe update members on other various bids that we've put forward, which also include some of the retrofitting funding that the government have recently announced. The UK Community Renewal Fund aims to support people and communities in most need across the UK, creating opportunities to trial new approaches and innovative ideas at the local level. The UK Community Renewal Fund and its brother, the UK Shared Prosperity Funds, are replacing the EU structural funds, which end in 2023. Projects that need to be funded through these schemes have to follow a number of criteria, which include investment in skills, investment for local businesses, investment in communities and places, and supporting people into employment. The projects through these funding routes will also need to include and be referenced to the local industrial strategy. So they cover areas such as clean energy, agri-food and ICT and digital technology. 90% of the funding through the Community Renewal Fund was revenue funding, and it needs to be spent by the end of this financial year. So projects are extremely tight and have been created to match that delivery timescale. The first bid was a bid from Norwich City Council for the 100-day community challenge. It's a £500,000 bid that's going to help regenerate some of our most deprived communities. The project will be looking to develop active stakeholders and improve outcomes for neighbourhoods and individuals. Whilst the project would not exclude participants from areas outside of our initial focus, the main area for this project would be Mancroft, Heathgate, Milecross and Lakenham because of its multiple inequalities and high levels of deprivation. These were in existence both before and after the pandemic. The areas have been prioritised for their existing demand for support of projects of this type. All areas have had resident-led groups showing a desire for taking on green spaces and community challenges, with our community teams having received several inquiries about community projects this financial year. These areas have great amounts of green spaces where permission can be granted from the City Council, namely housing estates and large green spaces, which are underutilised by tenants which can support the projects. There's also a number of pre-existing groups who can offer pre-support via their ongoing initiatives. The main demand in these areas will help to deliver some ideas in terms of how our paid community connectors can develop in engagement with the third sector. The council will be offering complementary learning equipment such as computers, gardening tools and other various training which will enable these community groups to set the seed for hopeful positive change. There'll be various workshops and these will be commissioned under a register of interested specialists. These are pre-existing voluntary community and social enterprise providers who are experts in their sectors. This register will also include a large number of organisations that are based in Norwich. These partners will be commissioned to run specific workshops which they have a track record of offering and will help to deliver a range of improvements such as courses in cooking and growing plants to more difficult skills such as safeguarding, events management and training on biodiversity. We hope that this 100-day challenge will create a menu of skills that will enable communities to make positive changes in their areas, and it's hoped that this project will build soft skills, holistically increasing confidence in our communities and creating transferable skills that would help people get into new employment. Norwich City Council will provide an overarching project management function to the project, as well as being an area where the commissioned work can be brought by different business partners, and hopefully this project will help sustain and improve the voluntary sector, which has been particularly hit through the pandemic most recently. And any questions should be directed to Kate Price's team. The second project that the council's put in for via the Norfolk Climate Change Partnership is something called SHIFT, and it's £180,000 to be delivered over 7 months. The government expects hydrogen fuel to play an important role in the decarbonisation of heavy transport by 2030, as outlined in its recent hydrogen strategy. It plans to unlock £4 billion worth of investment and kickstart the world-leading hydrogen economy as part of the UK's transition to net zero. However, it is clear that if we are to progress towards this objective, we need to remove the carbon emissions from ICE vehicles, so these are internal combustion engines. There's a particular problem with ICE vehicles in the HGV sector, and this project aims to try to invent solutions for that sector particularly. The County of Norfolk is quite rural, and there's potential threat to business as usual where HGVs are not accommodated in terms of the low carbon transport progression. So SHIFT will develop the business case and feasibilities needed to help transport sectors improve their resilience to the adaptive change going forwards. The project will bring new partnerships and help generate an understanding of the use of hydrogen as an alternative HGV fuel. The project will focus on the Council of Norfolk and will look at HGV fleets in council activities such as waste fleets, and then look to generate green hydrogen through electrolysis using stranded asset lands. So that's looking at landfill sites and other pieces of land that the council has, which could help negate any costly grid reinforcement. So SHIFT will significantly increase the local knowledge on the use of green hydrogen and form new partnerships to enable multi-sector resilience to the decarbonisation of transport. The research will remove barriers to the HGV fleets in Norfolk, whilst also identifying the business cases for suitable location for the generation of green hydrogen. Finally, via the Norfolk Climate Change Partnership again, a bid called Community Energy Kickstarter. The bid aims to aid Norfolk decarbonisation by identifying the barriers to community energy schemes. Presently, Norfolk is missing out on green jobs and the added social value in not having its own localised energy systems. So this project will develop a ready-made community energy programme developed by local experts that would enable community energy to finally become established in Norfolk. This study will identify suitable areas in Norfolk for private wire investments. It's been estimated by Pecan Cities that Norwich alone spends £197 million on energy. So it's 4.3% of everything earned leaves this area to national energy providers. So community energy has been successful elsewhere, and therefore this feasibility study will identify the current barriers in Norfolk, and if such an energy system could be established via this market intervention. Theoretically, Norfolk's rural nature and high solar output levels make it well suited to the use of this energy. And the Net Zero Norfolk project will reduce, hopefully, these emissions coming from various sources, such as schools and businesses throughout the county. So over the last year, the council's been successful in various applications to central government funds, for example, the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund or the private sector decarbonisation fundings. So we hope that the CRF funds which we've put together will be positive, and hopefully by the next time that we meet and speak, we'll be able to update members further.
Thank you for that and for work you and team, Kate Price and everyone else who's been behind this putting these bids together. That was really helpful. Does anyone have questions? I can see Jamie out.
Thanks. Yeah, really good to hear this. And a couple of questions, firstly on the first one, which I've got the name of already, but the one about green projects in the including in Mancroft, which is very good to hear from his Mancroft councillor. A couple of questions: how will councillors be involved? And the second question is the some things that were referenced as that the council would offer, you know, computers and gardening equipment. Is that things that have come out from or residents who said they need? It's one of the things that I found that residents that often works really well for getting community groups to spread what they're doing and sort of enhance that impact is that there's communications support or support for them to hold, store, provide food for the local community, get people involved. That's the way that some of the really successful community groups in Mancroft have worked is through having physical activities that people can get involved in. I'm not sure. I've never heard anyone ask for a computer, for example. That may be wrong, but the second question is about community energy Kickstarter. Again, this is a question about how community energy groups that are already existing in Norfolk are being involved in that. And obviously there's Norwich Community Solar. I'm sure there's others elsewhere in Norfolk, locally here. I know that I've had contact with the council before, so are they being involved in that?
So in regards to the 100-day community challenge, I think that 8 paid community connectors will be developed, and their specific task would be to go out into those communities identified and have those conversations wherever those conversations are taking place. So say if there's a piece of land, they could do a workshop on that piece of land, or they could go out to where the communities are actually, engaging with each other and have those conversations there. So there'll be an uplift of engagement through those new posts. In terms of the community energy involvement, Norwich Community Solar helped in conversations when we were looking at the project funded through the CRF for identifying what's happened to date and why that hasn't led to community energy being more successful in Norwich, obviously because they're a Norwich-based organisation, but then trying to take those learning practices and applying it over the whole county. So yes, those conversations will be had as part of that project.
Is this a direct follow-up?
Yeah, just on the community engagement officers that will be paid for, will they be employed from people from the community? Because one of the things that I found something, for example, in the Cowgate area neighbourhood initiative, where they're really doing a lot of this work, some of the things that people said is if they were paid to do that work, they could do a lot more, and it works best if it's the people actually in the community actually working with the community themselves.
Well, I'm stepping in here and I don't actually know the answer, but I will find it out and let you know.
I know they will be well up for that. I know they will do it.
I believe they're paid positions funded from the CRF funding. The difficulty is the timescales of the actual funding needs to be spent by the end of this financial year. So as we wait for the outcome on our bids, it squashes the amount of time that the project has to be delivered. So I think these posts are going to be advertised shortly, I believe.
I think they are, yeah, I will follow up on the detail of that.
Adam, I did see Denise first, so sorry, I forgot Denise, and then Adam.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Yes, how will the outputs from the various projects be sustained into the future? I'm thinking of the, for example, the sustainable hydrogen project. Presumably the ultimate aim is to convert HGV vehicles to hydrogen across the county. So presumably part of the brief then would be to look for future funding or to put together as a template for applying for future funding. So I suppose the projects are very good, but they need to be sustained. And I'm thinking about travel plan officers, which were very good in their day. Government put a lot of money into them, but then a new government came in and withdrew the money, and the work has sort of foundered, really.
Yeah, so this project, the hydrogen one, would be sort of laying the foundations for a bid into the Shared Prosperity Fund that sits beyond the CRF. So hopefully we can work out the logistics in terms of fleet reviewing the HGVs, diesel needs, and understanding the available land that could be used for the creation of green hydrogen. and then develop the business cases that would enable us to apply for the funding going forwards.
Adam?
Thanks. With regards to the 100-day Green Space Challenge, sorry, I can't remember exactly what it was called. How were the areas determined that it's focusing on? Thanks.
I would have to go back to Kate unless Helen knows that.
I don't know all the detail, but we have we've done a huge amount of work over the last few years to identify what we sort of called our reducing inequality target areas, which are areas where we looked for using various different statistics that we have in terms of multiple indices of deprivation and so on. And so we've mapped a lot of the data that we have to identify what those areas are, and those are areas that we tend to focus on in terms of these areas of work. So I think it's a combination of that information plus the sort of more on the ground knowledge that Kate's team have in terms of where this kind of work might be beneficial, where the networks exist that might enable it to be delivered. As Richard says, the timelines are pretty ridiculous with these things. This is another of those government funds that are, as Richard said, is that he's asking for delivery within a very short time scale. So we needed to find opportunities that we could sort of pragmatically get going quite quickly, given the timeframes involved. So I think it's that sort of combination of what the data is telling us in terms of deprivation, and then the opportunity, the sort of asset-based element of it in terms of the opportunity that each of the communities presented and the networks that exist there. So it's that sort of combination.
Are there any other questions on this item? Just Jamie? No one wants to first go? No? Okay.
Yeah, just a quick question on the, I guess, ties in with both the community energy Kickstarter one and the hydrogen bit. Will that also link in with smart local energy systems, or will any of that cover work on smart local energy systems? Because I know it's something to speak to Norwich community so about recently, and also to John Jones at County Council about whether there's scope to develop that. So there's quite a lot of places in Norfolk that might be able to produce both heat and power and electricity and feed that back into a closed loop in the community area. I imagine there's places in Norwich as well.
In terms of this project, I think we'll be working with stakeholders like UKPN, and obviously the Climate Change Task Force is a membership, including the county, the Broadsea Authority, and the LEB. However, to deliver to the difficult and tough time frame that's been sort of allocated as part of this fund, we had to be quite precise about what we were intending to research and the outcomes that we wanted to get from it. So I don't think we would be broadening out our focus. I think it will be on the deliverable, of hydrogen and HGV, and then developing sort of business cases to take further bids forward through other funding mechanisms.
Unless anyone wants to quickly indicate, it sounds like we're there. Is that all questions? Okay, that is the end. Thank you again, Richard, for that work. Close the meeting.